Alright guys, so we're gonna go ahead and begin sanding this already. I already started on that side. I started smoothing it down because it did add a lot of epoxy on the ends. Right here you can see that there's a bunch of like little grooves just because of how I wiped it down, so it did make it really messy. So I just have to pretty much take that down, make it smooth, and then after that we're gonna go ahead and begin adding the next coat of resin. I just added a lot of epoxy on these ends right here, so I will most likely have to go back in here and then I have to smoothen it down. But it did remove the crack that I had right here. Once I added that pin that I showed you guys and I put it on there, it really did push it down, and I added epoxy over it and it created that strong hold to flatten it out. So that's really good. I'm happy about that. We're gonna be using a 120 in order to remove all the high spots. Make sure that you're using a flat surface or like a sanding block, that way you don't go through the epoxy onto the carbon fiber. Let's get to it. I'm gonna finish sanding this down and then I'll pick it up once we get to that point where we can go ahead and add the next layer. All right guys, so everything came out pretty good except for one part, which I'm pretty mad about because I put so much work into it and then find out that you have a small defect on it. If you look at it, I sanded down way too much. So I was going through it, I thought that it was just the top layer and I kept sanding down. I pretty much took it off, so you can see a spot right there where the carbon's supposed to be at. Now it's pretty much just gonna be clear when I add it on there. But I'll give it a few hours for it to dry out because I did just wash it down. So once it dries up, I'm gonna go ahead and add the first layer of resin, and then after that we're gonna go ahead and clear it. All right, so today is the next day. We went ahead and added our 2 layers yesterday on top, so it's looking pretty good. We still need to go ahead and wet sand it to remove all these little like bumps and then make it completely smooth. So at this point we're pretty much going to be using really light grits. We're going to be using 400, we're going to go up to 1000, and then we're going to go up to 1500. That way we can get a completely smooth surface, and that when we apply the clear coat, it looks completely smooth. We're pretty much done at that point. We just have to let it cure. So we're getting there. This part right here, like I said, it looks smooth and everything, but you can still see that spot. So it bothers me, but it's okay. It's not like it's the middle right here, so you won't even really be able to see that, because if you're driving and this is on the car, on the panel like this, you're not really going to be able to see that. You'll mainly see like the side unless you get really close. And it doesn't look too bad actually. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to it, start wet sanding it, and then we'll apply the final clear coat and see the final result so I can install this thing. All right, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to go ahead and start wet sanding this with some 400 grit to remove all the high surfaces. And you can still see some spots that need some sanding. So here, there's a few runs from the epoxy. We need to go ahead and sand those down until they're removed. What you're doing at this point is pretty much removing all the high spots. I got most of them out. There's still a little bit right here that needs to be removed. So you can see that line, we need to remove that. Over here, I still need to work on it a little bit more. There's a spot right there with the run, so I just need to remove them. There's a bunch of little dots on it, so we need to go ahead and just sand it down until we remove those. And you don't want to just go hard on it, just keep going until you feel that it's smooth. You could do that, or you can actually wait until it dries. Once it dries out, then you'll be able to see the spots that still need to be sanded down. I can still feel some right here. You can feel it with your fingers. I do not recommend using gloves at this point, because at this point your fingers will be able to feel all the little bumps. Like right now I can feel some right here. Just gonna sand it down. Feel it again. That feels a lot smoother. I can still feel some right here. I mean, if you want to be careful, just wet it, then let it dry. That way you can see the spots. But once you've been doing it for a while, you'll kind of know how it feels when it's smooth. Like right now, I can still feel this part right here. There's still a lot right here too. All right guys, so we pretty much sanded the complete thing down. I went ahead and used 400 grit, and then I used 1,000 grit. I'm still going to go up to 1,500, but there are a few spots that I actually want to go back over, add a little bit of epoxy, and then we're going to go ahead and sand them down right after. So this applies to you guys. If you want to go ahead and fill up some areas where you have some holes and they're too deep, do not try to sand down the panel all the way through that hole. Just add some extra epoxy on there, fill it up, and then go ahead and sand it down. Because what you're doing is, if you have a hole and you just keep sanding it down, you're going to get all the way to carbon fiber, and you don't want to do that. You want to add layers, sand it down, that way it's smooth and you're not going all the way to the bottom. So that's what kind of happened right here. It was too thin on the sides again. I had to add more epoxy, and then I'm going to add another layer on top after it gets really tacky. Because what's happening right now is you're adding the epoxy and it's running down because it's so thin and it's not sticky, so it's not grabbing onto it. So it looks shiny and everything, but this layer, it still has that bump right there even though I added the epoxy. So you have to add layers on top of it once it gets tacky. We're going to wait a little bit. It's still not tacky right now. It still has a few more, I would say about an hour or 2 hours in order to get to that stage where it gets really tacky. So right now it's a little bit, but see how it's still stringy? It's going down pretty fast. You want to do it until it's not as stringy. I can still sand these down. These are not too deep. So like for example here, you would need to add more epoxy. But we're getting there. It's taking a lot of work, a lot of prep, but in the end it's really going to pay off. Now let's look at the epoxy. It's still a little bit stringy, but it's not as stringy as it was before. It's taking longer to fall down. Want to wait a little bit more. I added some more on there. Now you can actually see that it's like going on top of it to create that flat surface. Along with this over here, creating that flat surface. This is still going down, so I still need to add more. So we're gonna wait a little bit more, and then I'm gonna add some more epoxy on top of it. All right guys, so here we have our 2K clear. We're gonna go ahead and apply it now on there. I already smoothed it down. Everything came out really good. So all we need to do is add this clear and see how it turns out. I already made all my holes. I would suggest going ahead and making your holes before you apply the clear. That way you don't have to drill after. So you can just let it sit there. But it's looking really good. Everything looks all smoothed out. There's no imperfections or anything. So now we're gonna go ahead and apply this clear. It's a 2-part clear, so you need to be very careful when using it. Make sure that you're using a mask. And you're gonna pretty much mix it for about 2 minutes. Once you mix it, pop this in. You can hear it pop. Mine's already loose. And then you're gonna go ahead and shake it for another 2-3 minutes for it to mix properly. We're gonna spray a total of 3 coats, and we're gonna let it dry for about 10 minutes before applying the next one. So yeah, I've already been mixing it, so let's go ahead and spray this on there. All right, so here's the first coat. As you guys can see, it looks really good. Off the bat, I can tell that there's some orange peel. But what you can do if you really want to, is you can go ahead and actually wet sand it and then buff it out. But of course, that's gonna be additional work. But you can see it's looking really good. Looks really shiny, smooth. Look at this, and look at that. Pretty much the same thing. Once 10 minutes pass, we'll add the second one, go a little bit heavier, and then for the third one, we'll wait another 10 minutes and then add another heavy coat on there. And this stuff is really, really strong. Like if you're gonna be applying this, make sure that you are using a high quality mask, because this is gonna really mess you up. You're gonna have some trouble breathing and stuff. So make sure you are using something to protect yourself, or you're pretty much gonna be sick for a while. But this is how it's looking. It looks really dope. It looks really sick. It looks like real carbon fiber. Well, it is real carbon fiber, but I did it, so it looks pretty dope. Look at the difference. Well, there really isn't no difference. It pretty much looks like the exact same thing. It came out really sick. I like it a lot. I just gotta go ahead and install it right there. If I were you guys, I would use a high quality clear on here. that has a UV protectant. That way it can last a really long time. You can kind of tell by my hood and the fenders. I did get it re-cleared a while back, so it looks a lot better right now. But this one, you can see it's a lot more clear, as well this one has a little bit of yellow in it. So that's why it's important that you go ahead and use some high quality clear. That way it stays nice for a long time, especially if you're leaving it out in the sun. Now, the reason I didn't use a high quality clear on this is because I actually installed the other fender a while back. It's been about 2 weeks and something bad happened to it. It doesn't look horrible, but it's really bothering me the way that it looks. I'll show you guys in the next video once I install this one, how it looks and everything once it's completed and once it's on there. So it's really unfortunate because it takes a lot of work in order to be able to do this. Now I understand why companies are charging so much to be able to do something like this. Because it's not easy. It takes like over a week just to be able to complete one panel. It's a lot of timing. I didn't even have to create the mold. This was already on there, so I didn't even have to do that. So somebody that's actually creating the entire kit themselves from scratch is going to take even longer because you have to create the actual panel, put the carbon fiber over it, overlay it, do everything that we did, sanding it down, making it look nice and clean. So it does take quite some time. So let me go ahead and put this on there and then I'll show you guys how it looks. Alright guys, there you go. It's now installed. That's how it looks. It looks really dirty right here, don't mind it. But it looks super clean. Look at that, that looks so dope. It looks the same as this right here, look at that. Pretty much looks the exact same way. I think this just completes the car with the fenders, the hood, and the back. Just look at that. Carbon, carbon, carbon. This one has like no imperfections. It has a few small ones. Like it still needs to be wet sanded. And then smoothing it down, buff it out. But overall, this one came out really sick. Sadly, this is not going to look this good for very long. I'll explain in the next video why. That way you guys can go ahead and pretty much see exactly what's going on. And why you need to do what you need to do when you're doing this. So it's cool because then I get to learn along the way what I'm doing. This is my first time actually doing this. And then I learned a lot of tips, a lot of tricks in order to be able to do it. So when I do it next time, it'll look a lot better. But yeah, that looks super sick. I'm really happy with how that came out. Alright guys, so I'll go ahead and end the video there. Like I said, I'll be making another video, doing a review on how this came out, what I would change, what I would do differently. That way, if you guys are interested in doing this, you guys pretty much know exactly what to expect if you do certain things a certain way, and how you can go ahead and like improve on it and actually do it right the first time. Alright guys, so that's going to conclude the video. Hope you guys really enjoyed it and saw how dope this looks. Especially because I did it on my own. I'm really surprised with how good it came out. But like I said, I did have some trouble with it after leaving it on for a while. I'll show you guys in the next video, and I'll make an updated video on it so you guys can see exactly what happened. It still looks good, but it's just something that's gonna bother me for a while until I go ahead and redo it. I will most likely have to redo the whole thing. I don't think it's gonna come out good, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to fix what happened to it. So make sure to hit that bell notification, subscribe so you guys can stay updated on what's coming next, and that way you guys can see what actually happened to the carbon fiber. But I'll go ahead and leave my Instagram somewhere around here. That way you guys can go ahead and check me out. You guys will be able to see things that I post, what's actually coming new to the channel, things that are going on before I go ahead and post it on here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to support the channel. Make sure to like, hit that bell notification. Make sure to also consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. It really does help out a lot. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.